Good afternoon and welcome to Tree Talk episode 174 of myself, Jack Neville, and Matt Callan of the Weekly Observer and Vale Star. Another hectic weekend to look forward to. There's a lot happened during the week. We obviously had the footballers and lady footballers in action last Sunday. We had the club draws for the coming year and obviously a huge clash between Limerick and Cork forward to. So stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I suppose we had a week full of storms there, Matt. How are you keeping yourself before we get into the GAA?
Not too bad, Jack. Sure, we had we had a kind of a stormy week since, conditions last weekend for games were very, very, very challenging. We saw the Limerick Louth game transferred at the very, very late on, transferred from the Gaelic grounds to UL, and I was out in Killeedy last week and in Martinstown and the conditions definitely were challenging, and fair play to all those that took part and played games and went out and played games. I'll tell you, it's one of those days that you would give anything to be at home by your fireside. And we woke up this morning, of course, to a blanket of snow. Thankfully, the roads are cleared already. There's some in the fields still, but the worst of it seems to have passed. But we're certainly we're enduring winter weather at the moment, Jack. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, our weather doesn't seem to go by schedule. It was very sunny yesterday. I was walking around for a while, and then all of a sudden it was raining, and then we'd snow by nightfall. So it's very hard to judge. I suppose we'll start with congratulate Patrick English for his President's Award for, I suppose, a lifetime of service to Gaeltacht Gaels and Limerick GAA. But you have more to say on that.
I would like to join in and congratulate Patrick English. I know him his entire life, actually, and in his entire involvement with Gaelic games, and like to second to none. But I have to say this, Jack, I must say this first, that well done to the GAA for introducing awards like this. They give an award every year, a Precedence Award, one to each province, for outstanding service to the association over a long period. And certainly, Patrick English certainly fits that bill. His contribution to Gaelic games, his commitment to Gaelic games, his commitment to the promotion of all things Gaelic games is second to none. Like he played, now apart from a short spell when he played in Kildare, when he was with the Defence Forces up there, and a short spell in Cork, his career began, believe it or not, at underage level with Ballylanders, because there wasn't a team at under 14 living in Gaeltacht Gaels at the time. But apart from that, his entire career has been with Gaeltacht Gaels, and he was, this award is very, very fitting, because not just for the service that he has given, but back in the mid-80s, the Gaels were going very, very well, and he huge service given to him. And in 1987, he took ill, and it basically ended his career, playing career. And they won the junior championship, the county junior championship in 1988. He was that tantalizingly close to getting some reward for his playing career. But before his playing career ended, Jack, it was obvious that he was going to be an administrator of the future, because he had morphed into taking roles within the club, and like he has taken every role within the club over the years, and as we speak, he's the club's cultural officer now. Patrick English has a very, very genuinely commitment to the promotion of sport, the promotion of the Irish language, the cultural side of the organisation, which sometimes gets neglected. But he puts that out there in front. Like he has served the association, has served on the county board and the hearings committee and that sort of thing. And like he's fulfilling a dream this weekend, Jack, as we speak, in that he's getting to go to Congress as a Limerick representative, which is very, very, very fitting. And there's nobody that I could think of that was more worthy of this award. Absolutely, in terms of service to the GAA, absolutely second to none. And again, I repeat that it is a great system. It's only one in the province, and I suppose that makes it more elusive. And it's a great system that people like Patrick English, for years, and we're talking here over 5 decades of volunteerism to the association, that they get some reward and some recognition.
Yeah, it's brilliant recognition. I suppose the way you say it probably would be nearly better if it was per county. With the fact that it's per province, it just goes to show the immense work that Patrick did.
The only bit of a downside on it, Jack, is I feel for Patrick in this in that these things are normally presented at a banquet. Because of the blooming pandemic, it had to be done. It had to be done above in the Galtee Gales pitch in John O'Mahony Park this year, because that was before the relaxation of the. It's 2 weeks ago. That was before the relaxation of the guidelines. So, if there is a downside, that is it. That he didn't get to enjoy, all that goes with it, but certainly a most worthy recipient of the award.
Yeah, definitely most worthy. I suppose you mentioned the Congress there, Matt, and I suppose there's so many motions and you don't know which way they're going to go. It will probably be nearly pointless to discuss a shares, but one that I think is definitely close to your heart is the integration of the Ladies Football Association and the Camogie Association. That's been put forward by the GPA. We had Gerard Hegarty talking about it, the importance of voting yes. So I suppose if there was one motion to pass, that is one that you'd definitely be looking for.
Oh yeah, I'd certainly be looking for it, Jack. I've been championing that for a number of years now. It's something very, very close to my heart. And we take next Saturday, Jack. We have the double header in Park Louth. Like you have Limerick and Cork Camogie at 3:00. You have Cork and Galway football at 5:00. Jack, the sky isn't going to fall down because we have that kind of a curtain raiser. That is our future, and that we share facilities and I remember a time, and it's not too long ago, Jack. It's in recent times actually, when you wouldn't get the ladies football in particular and the Camogie fixtures until maybe late in the week. Sometimes when we would be gone to press, we wouldn't know where Limerick might be playing on the Sunday or the Saturday. And that was because they just could not get venues. And let's hope that this will eliminate it all. And that we have a coming together, and that we see more of what is proposed for Cork on Saturday. Very, very attractive doubleheader, and ladies football promoted by Jackie Cahill has gone down this road for the last 2 or 3 years, where we have had an attractive double football fixtures, men and women. So I think it's a fantastic development. I just hope that it will be passed. I also hope, Jack, that And we're as guilty as anyone on this, and I'll tell you why in a second. That the motion with regarding the markings of numbers on jerseys is passed.
Yeah.
Because it was extremely difficult. Limerick have a beautiful new jersey. The Limerick ladies team have a beautiful new jersey, but it's damn hard to read the numbers.
Yeah, I suppose there is that white running through it in large patches. We talked about that in a few weeks ago.
We've got to forget about this thing of this cool markings and all this sort of jazz that I hear. It wouldn't be cool to have a square on the back and a clear number on it. I don't buy into that, Jack. I honestly hope that something seriously is done at it, because there are so many people disaccommodated. The public who buy programs to be able to read numbers and tally the numbers with their programs. Us in the media trying to report and trying to report accurately. And Jack, referees, and on the spot at the moment, you know, have it's quite difficult for them to spot these numbers.
Yeah, I suppose it probably isn't the coolest thing to do, but that's elementary. But again, hopefully we talk about these things next week that they'll be passed.
Yeah, we're not into cool. We're not into cool, Jack. We're into pragmatism.
Yeah, certainly, and knows me that knows that's true. Another thing before we get into the games was that the draws were made on. Well, I don't even know what day today is Thursday. They were made on Tuesday evening. And we'll just run through maybe just the top tiers. And I suppose in the Senior Hurling Championship, Limerick's flagship championship, you've a rematch of the final in the very first round, Kilmallock versus Patrickswell. Then you have Napiershig versus Doon, which was the final itself in 2020. And you have a hand versus Adair, which as well is a big game, because you'd probably look at those as probably the two weaker teams in the group. So if one of them can get a win at the start, it could nearly be enough for survival, but it could also kickstart a year where we're looking to see someone break into that top four.
Yeah, and I've been reflecting on the draw since, Jack, and I know we'll be going into it in real depth when the competition starts, and it's a long, long way off. But if I were to fancy somebody to break into the top four, it's Adair. You know, I think they showed signs. And you're right. If they can get a win over a hand in the first round, it will give them it will give them momentum. They have always made life difficult for both Kilmallock and Patrickswell. Yeah. And so, like, I think if Adair get off to a winning start, they may be the team that will break into the top four. But like, you know, what a mouth-watering start to your championship. You get a repeat of the county final of last year. But Jack, looking at the groups, Group A and Group B, if I were to single out a fixture that stands out now, the repeat of the county final stands out. But Mungret St. Paul's against Kildimo Palace Kenry hits me straight in the face as an outstanding fixture. And not just because they were the county premier intermediate champions of the last 2 years, Jack. And of course, it's a rematch of the 2020 final. Yeah. But like, there's a history between these teams. And when we talk about history between teams, we tend to insinuate that it's bad, but it's not. There's a very, very good history between these teams of producing absolutely outstanding games. And now I'm not so sure. I think that the fixture will probably suit Kildimo Palace Kenry more than Mungret. Like Mungret St. Paul's, you know, first game back at senior level would probably have preferred the new face rather than a familiar old foe. But it is what it is. And it has the prospect to be a cracking game. I'm just looking at Blackrock and Ballybrown there and reflecting on it, Jackie. And you were with me 2 years ago when we streamed that game from Brough, if you will remember, when they met in the first round. And Ballybrown unleashed on the unsuspecting hurling world the talent that is Colin Coughlin. Yeah. And if you recall, on that particular night, he stood head and shoulders over everybody. And what was his senior championship debut, and announced once and for all that he had made the transition from minor to senior hurling. Garrispillane and South Liberties. Look, it's interesting times, Jack. It's an awful lot to look forward to. A great late summer and autumn of hurling.
Yeah, that was definitely one fixture that stood out for me. Kildimo Palace versus Mungret St. Paul's, and I'd said the Mungret lads will be gunning for him after losing that final. But I think for Kildimo and Mungret, they're probably both better off losing that Premier Intermediate final because they definitely came back much better sides. But I suppose it's interesting that you have Ballybrown in there as well. I don't know if Ballybrown, Mungret St. Paul's, and Kildimo Palace were in the same grade. I can't even remember it happened before. There's only a couple of miles between them, so there's a lot of local derbies there. But very, very interesting and very hard to call. Adair do seem to be the team that could be the one to break into it, or else it could be a team in Group 2. They have 6 games now to get a run on it to face into that quarterfinals. But look, as you said, we'll touch on that more as we get closer to it. Just the Premier Intermediate draw.
We'll be watching Ballybrown with interest.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I thought Ballybrown were most unlucky to be in the position that they're in now.
Yeah.
He could have been so different. You must remember, like, that they led Kilmallock right going into injury time, and had they held out on that day, one just doesn't know what would have happened. But it is what it is, and they get an opportunity now to regroup and drive on. And I would be watching Ballybrown certainly. Yeah,
the Premier Intermediate draw, you've Drumnatlacha versus Knockany, Effin versus Bruff, Cappamore versus Monaleen, and Newcastle West against your own Glenrue. I suppose a 7-game competition like that, it's just about who can build momentum. But I suppose 2 years ago, Kildimo Palace were heavy favourites. Last year, Munger heavy favourites. It seems to have evened out, I suppose, who is going to come away with that title this year.
It does.
Unless you're going for Glenrue, obviously.
It would be a brave man that would call it from this remove. Like, you're not asking me for predictions now, Jack, because
no, I want to.
You know, an awful lot can happen over the summer with people going away on these J1s and all that sort of stuff. So that might impact in it. But when I looked at the lineup for the intermediate Premier Intermediate Championship, Jack, the first thing that struck me was that it mirrored in many ways the 2014, which was the inaugural Premier Intermediate Championship. And why did it mirror it? Because I'm looking at it here. It's top heavy with South teams. There are 5 South Limerick teams in the competition this year. Actually, believe it or not, Jack, in 2014 there were 7. Okay. The odd one out was Knockaderry. So in that way, it mirrors it in many ways. You know, with 2 South derbies to start with. Like, we're going to have a South derby probably every week, every round anyway, at least, if not 2. You've Drumnatlacha and Knockany. You've Effin. Could be dark horses there now, Jack.
Yeah.
As I say, it's a long, long way off, but if anybody thinks that the newcomers being promoted are going to be whipping boys, they're going to be in for a land there, I think, because certainly Effin are upwardly mobile. There's no question about that. And I just don't want to be talking again about the influence of Nicky Quaid and these, but we saw the young players that they brought through and that helped them over the line in the Intermediate Championship, and they're going to move on another step. You know, the likes of the O'Connors and Patrick O'Donovan and Sean Canning and these people. So you know, they may be the newcomers. Can Cappamore replicate what Kildimo, Palace, Kinry and Mungret have done for the last 2 years? Lose one and go on and win it? I don't know. They have a tough opener against Monaleen, who were relegated from senior last year. And, of course, we have Newcastle West and Glenrue, which is a repeat of the 2019 intermediate final. And, you know, we're talking about Kildimo, Palace, Kinry and Mungret St. Paul's losing one and going on and winning it. Newcastle West come into that as well. They lost the intermediate final of 2019 and won it in 2020. So,
yeah, they're both semi-finalists last year as well. Like, so there is a lot of pedigree in there, but you couldn't say one is a favourite over another. Intermediate
not at this remove, Jack. We not that they're a great guide, but we just want to see how teams are shaping up in the leagues, and when management setups are finalised, and if there are players going away that might impact on it. There are lots of ifs and buts out there, but one thing is sure, another cracking championship, Jack.
Yeah, and obviously the intermediate and junior A championship draws are made there as well. They're probably easier just to go onto the website and read, because there's 36 teams between them. Just before we finish on those, Matt, the senior football championship, I suppose, we'll have to look at Group 1. You've Monleen versus Newcastle in round 1. You've Galway against Clahan and Father Casey's versus Ula. I suppose before we go into Group 1, you would imagine the winner of that first round clash between Monleen and Newcastle West, which was the semi-final last year, would be looking to go 5 from 5 and straight into semi-final, just the way those teams have been operating the last couple of years.
Yeah. And dare I mention it, and it's a Hardy annual. Will Father Casey's be capable of upsetting that?
They definitely have the talent around the club. They're obviously in intermediate this year as well, which is a huge ask for any club to be operating at the top 2 tiers. But I suppose it could give, there's not as much of a gulf from Premier Junior to senior, or so from intermediate to senior as there would be from Premier Junior to senior. So it could work in their favour, it could work against them. It remains to be seen. In Group 2, obviously the standout tie is Ballysteen versus Ballylanders, but for some of the neutrals, you also have Galtee Gales and Adair and St. Kieran's versus Kildare Palace Kenry. A lot of teams that know each other as well. Obviously Kildare Palace Kenry are new into it, but Kieran's wouldn't be very far away from them. A lot of intriguing ties there as well.
There are, and Kieran's and Kildare Palace Kenry will be very, very interesting. Kieran's have been embroiled in the relegation scrap for the last 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see, can they pick up and drive on, or will the momentum of Kildare Palace Kenry get them off to a winning start there? And we have a repeat of the county semi-final, of course, of Galtee Gales and Adair in the first round, which leaves, I suppose, the standout tie as far as we are concerned, Jack, is Ballysteen and Ballylanders. Will you win goals for Ballysteen, Jack?
Please God, we'll see. We'll see what training's like. If I'm not in goals, I'll be in the sideline roaring at you. So
because if you are, I would plan on trying to be an umpire.
Do you talking to me, or you don't have to swap sides at half time as well? Yeah, should have planned.
Yeah, look, it's a repeat of the semi-final of 2020.
You
know,
first round in 2019, quarter final in 18. Like every year we meet you somewhere along the line.
Absolutely. So that's another interesting tie. Like in fairness, the draws, like you could hardly script them better, but I suppose that's down to the system whereby you have the seedings.
Yeah, it definitely works, in fairness, the draw.
Which guarantees that the top 4 are involved in 2 of the ties from the previous year, you know. And
they're all split as well, 2 from the semi-finals. But yeah, look, that's the draws. They're up and full on the website. You can watch the draw.
Strange to say, Jack, we were talking about the leagues and why they may not be a guide as to what might happen in the championship. That doesn't apply to the same extent, particularly last year anyway, in the senior football championship. Because in many ways, those that were going well in the leagues, that was reflected in the championship to a certain extent.
Yeah,
that includes Monleen and Newcastle West, who are meeting in the first round, who met in the league final last year. And Monleen, I think, Monleen won it that night, and I think Monleen that night made a statement like that they were going to be around for the championship, which they were.
Yeah, it depends. Teams can pick up momentum. Some teams can maybe get ahead of themselves. So it's just how you handle that league. I suppose that's nearly 25 minutes, and we haven't spoke about any game this weekend yet. So we'll go into those. The standout tie is obviously a rematch of last year's All-Ireland final, Limerick versus Cork. This Sunday at 3:45 in the 2 Gaelic grounds. Limerick, incredibly, are looking for a first win in the league in their 3rd game, and Cork are going for 3 in the bounce. So for Limerick, really, this isn't about winning the league. The league is essentially gone. You can't imagine that, I suppose, Galway or Wexford or Galway or Cork will lose that many games for Limerick. This is about getting a first win on the board, and there's nothing like the sight of the Rebels in Limerick to get Limerick into gear.
No, Jack, and like the expectation for this game is enormous because you're obviously going to have Cork coming, looking for revenge for last year's All-Ireland final, believing and probably that they didn't do themselves justice on that occasion. And of course, there's been a history of great games between the counties in recent years. Now, they met 3 times last year, and Limerick won all 3. As you rightly pointed out, they won the league game, they won the first round of the championship, and of course, they won the All-Ireland final. Now, there are a lot of parallels coming into this game with last year. Limerick with 2 defeats, Jack, are practically out of the race for league honours. But like I honestly believe that the drive for 3 in a row starts here. Because now the only little caveat that we would put into this one is that it's a dress rehearsal of the first round in Cork in April, which is not too far away now. It's only 7 or 8 weeks away.
Yeah, I'd say it'll be 7 weeks from Sunday.
Yeah, so that might condition people's thinking. But coming into the game last year, Cork had 5 points out of a possible 6. Limerick had a 1 point out of a possible 6. Cork come in this year with 4 points out of 4. Limerick come in with no points out of 4. So the parallels are there. So you're right. There's nothing better, I suppose, than the sight of the red jersey to motivate Limerick. And I honestly believe that this is the day in which they've got to put down a marker. And what impressed me most, Jack, about Limerick in the campaign so far, and you can say, how can you be impressed with a team that has lost 2 games? But Jack, there has been measurable improvement from the game in Wexford to the game in Cork. And that is repeating what happened last year. As games went on and as the season went on, Limerick grew, got better and better. And I expect that we'll see Limerick up another notch this weekend. Now, what the composition of the Limerick team will be, that would be very, very interesting.
I'm glad you said that there, not to cut across you. I just put up on the website yesterday what people wanted the team to be like, so I gave them options of everyone. In goals, Nicky Quaid with 89% of the vote. Then the back 6 that started the Ireland final, Sean Finn, Barry Nash, Dan Morrissey, Hayes, Burns, Hannon, just ahead of Rich English and Colin Coughlin. The midfield duo is the same as well from All-Ireland. Will Donoghue and Dar Donovan. Brian O'Grady would have been third there. And obviously there has to be changes in the forward line with Grod Hegarty and Peter Casey out, obviously. So they opted for Tom Morrissey, Cathal O'Neill and Cian Lynch in the half forward line. Aaron Gillan and Seamus Flanagan were unanimous in the full forward line, with Adam English just beating out Dave Reedy and Graham Mulcahy. What way would you be going for the game? So that would have been 13 of the All-Ireland starting team.
Jack, I've said to you many, many times, the hazard, it is second-guessing John Kiley.
Yeah. But will we see Cian Lynch?
No. The first question is, will Willem O'Donoghue have shaken off the injury?
By all accounts, it looks good for Will.
We're told it looks good, but let's hope that he will, because he'll be an absolutely huge player. It'll be very interesting to see. It's been a very, very difficult week, and I know you'll be alluding to it later. It's been a very, very difficult week for Cian Lynch. And and I'll say it now lest I forget it later on. The impeccable manner in which he behaved himself, and we saw footage of him after the defeat and after the controversial sending off, and it was controversial sending off. He still had time for young people, for signing autographs, taking selfies, and all that sort of thing. What a role model. Now, is the best way to get the whole lot of it out of his system give him a game against Cork?
I'd imagine so. But just on Cian there, you're not surprised one bit by the way he acted after the game.
Not surprised. Not surprised. No. One iota. But people in the circumstances that he were in last week, could be excused for sulking in the corner after, because I think his sending off was incorrect. And I know that, and it certainly had a profound influence probably on the outcome of the game, perhaps. But that's a hypothesis that we'll never know.
No.
But it's probably the time now to unleash him with the Limerick team.
Yeah. Last year he was man of the match in the same game. Obviously in the All-Ireland final, but also in the league game. You would forget how good he was in the Gaelic rounds, and I'm sure the way we're speculating here, I'm sure Cork won't want to see Cian Lynch there because he's a conundrum that no team has solved really, but he really shines against Cork, whatever it is about their system. And if he is named, they'll have to do something different. They can't just go with an orthodox centre back, because that's where Mark Coleman plays. His position just doesn't really allow for someone like Cian Lynch to be in opposition against him. But outside of Cian Lynch, do you see anyone else? I suppose Cathal O'Neill looks to be guaranteed starter after his performance.
Well, Cathal O'Neill after the last day has to be included, and
Hegarty been gone as well, obviously.
Line, and he would probably look to be a natural replacement, a direct replacement for Gearóid Hegarty.
No, it probably suits his game.
Corner forward, is it too soon for Adam English for a full game? Would John Kiley opt to give Graham Mulcahy 40 minutes?
Okay, there's definitely options there. I think Darren O'Connell deserves a good chunk of time after his Munster Hurling Cup exploits. Do you go with Dave Reedy again in the corner and see if Limerick are playing?
Or do you give Dave Reedy or Adam English? A lot of options there, Jack.
Yeah, Micheál Houlihan as well, I think, is with the squad, and if he's fit, he needs to get a chance as well after. No, that could be wrong with that, but I'm very sure he's part of the panel. Just was injured after the Munster campaign. There's loads of options there, and as you said, I suppose it's elementary for us to be deciding, because John Kyle makes decisions, and more often than not, a lot more often than not, they're right. From a Cork point of view, Matt, obviously it's important for Limerick to get that win under their belt and just get that monkey off their back. But for Cork, they have to be thinking we need to beat Limerick at some stage, because we are going to play them in Munster, and there's a possibility we'll meet them in Croke Park as well. That they haven't beaten Limerick in a knockout game in so long. They just need to get a win over Limerick, essentially.
They do. They need to get a win, and Kieran Kingston is juggling around his players. He's introducing some young players. Kieran Joyce has been a bit of a revelation at centre field, and Padraig Power has come in. But I still think that the Cork defence is shaky. They coughed up 221 against Clare. Now, they won the game because of the strength of their forwards. But it was a Clare forward line that didn't include Tony Kelly, nor John Conlon, nor Peter Duggan. Had those three been around, you just wonder what the story would have been. I think Cork have a series and a potential from 8 up. I think Cork are okay.
Just okay.
Well, no, they're more than okay. They're where they want to be. But I think from 2 to 7, it's there the question marks are. And coming up against the Limerick forward line and the power of the Limerick forward line, if they concede 221 to Clare, if Cian Lynch is on the field, Tom Morrissey playing at his best, and Aaron Gillan, Seamus Flanagan, whoever else John Kiley chooses, whether it be Cathal O'Neill, whether it be David Reedy, Darren O'Connell, Adam English, Graham Mulcahy. Very, very important forward line. It'll really, really test them. And the Achilles heel of Cork for the last number of years, Jack, has been the defence.
Yeah, I think for Cork,
the cough up 3-18 in an All-Ireland semi-final last year was unprecedented. No, I know Limerick ticked all the boxes on the day.
I don't think it made a difference who was playing against Limerick last year, but I think for Cork it wouldn't really be personnel. I think they're pretty good defenders. Obviously, Sean O'Donoghue, Tim Mahoney, Mark Coleman, Jeremy Millerick, they'd all be pushing in every county team. So I think it's probably more of a system kind of thing. They were just left wide open against Limerick last year. That just can't happen against any side really, but definitely not Limerick. So I think for them it'll just be about getting a system in place where they can. The Gaelic grounds is a lot smaller than Croke. Well, it seems a lot smaller than Croke Park. Maybe it isn't, but just it seems more confined. That if they can just get a hold around the middle third, and they won't have Peter Casey tormenting them as well, obviously,
No.
which he did so effectively last year. It's definitely an interesting game, but one that even though it's only third round of the league, with the championship 7 weeks away, with the way that the league is falling, like Cork will be mad for silverware. Like Cork won the All Ireland in 2005. They last won the league in 1998. Like they've only had a couple of pieces of silverware this century for a powerhouse of hurling. Like they'll be mad to get that win. But look, it remains to be seen. 3:45, it's live on Teachcar. But obviously, if you can get out there, get out and support the team. Just the two other games, Matt, Offaly and Clare in O'Connor Park. If I was Offaly, I would definitely be targeting this game.
Yeah, I think that if that to get a win, this should be the one, because they still have to come to Limerick.
Yeah.
In the last game, and if Limerick show the level of improvement game on game that they showed last year, and which they've shown in the 2 first rounds this year, then they'll be running up against a very, very strong Limerick side. Like if they're to get a win, this is possibly the game, but it's very, very hard to see it, Jack. I think Clare will go there and win that game.
I think it depends on who Clare have available. If they have Peter Duggan back, obviously Mark Rogers, I don't think Mark Rogers will be playing after getting injured for UL. Pat Carty's with the UL freshers, so maybe he won't be playing. Remains to be seen. But just for Offaly, they'll probably take solace in the fact that Antrim beat Clare at home last year. Obviously, Antrim were kind of in the same situation as Offaly last year, so I think they'll be targeting that game. And then obviously Galway versus Wexford, which will be, they're also going to be thinking about the Leinster Championship. But the two of them are on 2 wins from 2. They have Cork to come, so they'll be looking to get a win, and it'll kind of put them in pole position to win the league. So Galway or Wexford?
Yeah, it's I think Galway will win it, Jack. There's something about Galway this year. I was impressed with them against Limerick. They have home advantage against Wexford. Isn't that correct?
Yeah,
because they travel to Cork next week. Actually, or in the next round they travel to Cork, Galway, which will be a huge game for them. Could be a huge game one day, and Cork to win this weekend. It would be, to decide to go through to the league final nearly. So I'm going for wins for Galway, Clare, and at the risk of being wrong 3 times about Limerick, I'm going for a win for Limerick.
I'll go for Limerick, but I'm going to go for the outsiders in other games. I just have a feeling for Offaly. I could be proved wrong; they could get hammered as well. And Wexford just, I suppose Galway at home is a big difference, but conditions in Salt Hill wouldn't be the best. I think Wexford play better in kind of mucky conditions. But look, it's a good weekend of hurling after, I suppose, a weekend without. For Billy Lee and the footballers, we obviously had the game last week, and again, look forward to this weekend. The disruption last Sunday, even from like a patron point of view, just going to the game, having a change, a half-hour difference. I can't imagine what that was like for the players, but they were 5 points ahead going into injury time against Louth, and to concede 7 in a row. Now I know the wind was strong and Louth pushed up, but it was definitely disappointing for Billy Lee and his side, especially after losing to Tipperary in the McGrath Cup, and you're thinking through-away lead, and then they responded with wins against Longford and a win in Antrim. You're thinking this team has learned a lot. They obviously have, but the manner of that fixture puts an awful lot of pressure going into Aughrim this Saturday. It does,
and like Billy Lee was in his post match was quickly to dismiss excuses of weather or excuses of change of venue or anything like that, because it was the same. It was probably the same for both sides. But what struck me was you had a direct reverse of what had happened in the 2 previous games, where Limerick got early goals, and when they were under pressure late on, they saw it out. This occasion, they conceded an early goal, actually, as early as the 2nd minute.
Yeah.
And they were 5 points up going in the home straight and conceded 7 without reply. You would have backed Limerick all day based on the performance against Longford and against Antrim, that they would have seen out the game from that position, but they didn't, and it changes the dynamic considerably. It changes the dynamic because we were saying last week, were they to beat Louth, and I thought they would beat Louth. The mindset going to Wicklow would be one of promotion. Now we're suddenly back into consolidating in Division 3. Because like Limerick, let's face it, Jack, they have a tough run in. Westmeath at home, Laois away, and Fermanagh at home. There's no gimmies there along the line. So, points on the board would be very, very important. 2 points last Sunday would have been hugely important. 2 points next Saturday are even of greater importance now. Yeah. I think it's going to be a difficult tie. Now, we've thumped Wicklow in each of the last 2 years. We thumped them in McNeville Park when we hit them for 5 goals back in 2020 on our way to winning Division 4. And then we had that huge win in Ockram last year, 219 to 112. Now, very few counties have gone to Ockram. Very few counties have gone to Ockram and won, Jack. Not a mind winning by 10 points. So can Limerick replicate it? That is the big question. I don't think it's going to be easy. But there is one thing that this Limerick team has great resolve, great resilience. We've seen in the past when their backs have been to the wall, they're at their best. We saw it in Sligo 2 years ago. We saw it in Ockram last year because it was a survival battle when they went to Ockram.
Yeah.
And they delivered. And you'll be hopeful that they would deliver again this time.
Yeah, I suppose for Limerick, it's promotion is still fairly in their hands because even though they lost Louth, the big hitters, if you want to call them that, Laois and Westmeath are still to come, that they can still make them drop points essentially. But it's just a case of if you lose to Wicklow, you're kind of in no man's land. Promotion would seem to probably be out of reach because you'd be imagining some teams will be getting to 8 or 9 points, that you don't want to be dragged into that relegation battle. You want to be looking up. And for the last 3 or 4 years, this Limerick team has been looking up. But as you said, they've shown that they can win in Ockram. But last year when they played Ockram was at June. It's going to be a different game. This weekend there's probably going to be stormy enough weather up in Ockram. But if you were to win in Ockram, it would give you huge, huge confidence to go out and beat Laois and to beat Westmeath and to beat Fermanagh. It's just, Par wrote an article on this week, it's just about how you react. So if they can react to the win, the Louth game be water under the bridge. If you lose, it's kind of pressure is really on.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the significance of it is were you to beat Wicklow, you would go 5 points clear of Wicklow, which would be a very, very tall order to ask Wicklow to claw back a 5 points deficit over 3 games. And you would also have the head to head on them if it came to that. So that is one of the significant aspects of the and importance of getting the game, getting a win in Wicklow. It's going to be difficult, Jack, but I think they just might do it. Pa's right, it all comes down to what the reaction is going to be. We saw what the reaction to the McGrath Cup was, which was fiercely positive. Even the drubbing in Kerry, even though they lost to Tipperary, I thought I was hugely impressed at that stage with the reaction to that, and they were very, very unlucky not to have beaten Tipperary in the McGrath Cup, but. We saw then against Longford and Antrim, Billy Lee got exactly the response that he was hoping for and that he would be hoping for. And he'll be looking for more of the same of that in Ockram on Saturday.
And one thing for Limerick, even though they lost last weekend, they played there's going to be a share of these teams that are going to have 5 weeks on the row, namely Fermanagh, Laois, Westmeath and Longford. That could play into Limerick's hand with conditions heavy. It's just hard playing week on week. At the same time, if you get a bit of momentum week on week, you will want to play in. So it remains to be seen how that works. But Limerick played, in fairness to them, I suppose there was pressure. I think Louth stayed in Limerick the night before, so there definitely was pressure to play that game. We saw some conditions, like being out in UL, it was grand for 70-80% of the game, but it wasn't a case of Louth had the wind in the first half and Limerick had in the second half. The wind could be with you 1 minute and gone the next. It's just very difficult to try and contain. But anyways, Limerick play Wicklow this Saturday in Aughrim at 2:30. I know the under-20s are playing in Wicklow the same evening. They lost to Clare last weekend, the Liam Connor Cup. I suppose the league for the under-20s is very hard to judge because you're not even playing Munster teams. I think they have Offaly to come afterwards, but just Shamey and the side got a game under their belt. They obviously lost in UL 4-4, I think, to 3-9. I think was the score. It was a 4-3 to 3-9. Obviously went for goals, but very difficult condition. Just the best of luck to that team this weekend. They obviously will be playing Munster Championship in 7 or 8 weeks as well. So the best of luck to them. We had the ladies in action last Sunday. Matt, you were out in Martinstown. I suppose, what were the conditions like out there, first and foremost?
Oh, sure, Jack, they were awful. We were lucky that we had the sanctuary of the clubhouse from which to cover it in a bird's eye view. But
a day for the Ducks.
A day for the Ducks, and just like you said there, that was in UL. The wind played havoc actually, but it did blow more or less down towards the Ballyhauras, Jack. We get accused here in the Ballyhauras countries of sending everything the other direction, but it actually blew towards the Ballyhauras on this occasion. I was hugely impressed with Limerick, Jack, insofar as the manner in which they dug out the victory. It didn't look good coming up to half time when they were trailing by a point, having played with the wind. And but then Katrina Davis got a goal, and Cathy Mee immediately got a point, and it was a goal cushion at half time. And one sensed that it wasn't enough, and certainly on the 38th minute, one said to oneself, it definitely isn't enough when Offaly got a goal and levelled it, and then they got a point, and that brought it up to the water break. But in that third quarter, Jack, Limerick sowed the seeds of victory, because they were under incessant pressure throughout the 15 minutes. They hardly got out of their own half. But the defence was absolutely magnificent, absolutely superb. That they restricted Offaly to a goal and a point. And then Limerick, just after the second water break, around the 52nd or 3rd minute of the game, they got a break when Iris Kennelly wormed her way through to get a goal. And almost from the kick out, all this transpired in 60 seconds. Limerick went back down again, and Cathy Mee applied the finish. So you were suddenly gone from 1 point down to being 5 points up. Offaly were rocked and shocked, but Limerick still had a job of work to do because the strong wind was still favouring Offaly. But again, Jack, the defence was absolutely magnificent. Absolutely magnificent. And they only conceded a point from a free after that, as they saw out the victory. Now, it puts Limerick in a very, very strong position. A position that we probably wouldn't have predicted at the start of the season, if we're honest. They're into the semi-final now. They're going to Carlow in the last round in what is an absolutely classical dead rubber. Because no matter what happens between London and Offaly, Limerick are going to finish top of the group, and Carlow are going to finish bottom of the group. So it will afford Graham Shine, and I put it to him afterwards, an opportunity, perhaps, maybe, to try out some players, some additional players, or some of the French players. Or will he go? He named an unchanged team now for both games. Will he go for a settled team? Obviously,
That's next week's question.
That's next week's question. So,
But it's just
be
brilliant to
interesting
have
to see.
a league semi-final to look forward to, with that added advantage of you have a game against Carlow where you can do really what you want with it. You can give players a break. You can keep them going with the momentum done. It's a good situation to be in for Graham Shiney's side, and we'll be looking forward to that Carlow game next week. Even though it's a dead rubber, John, it's another chance for Limerick to kind of lay down a marker, because you would be hopeful with all the, I suppose, re-additions back into the side and new players that getting out of Division 4 and also getting out of junior grade would be the main priorities, and they've started the season in that vein.
Yeah, and we spoke about a measurable improvement in Limerick from Wexford to Galway. I saw a measurable improvement from London to Offaly on the players, particularly the players coming back. The Mairead Kavanagh, Katrina Davis, Cathy Mee, all growing in influence. Sarah O'Sullivan, magnificent at fullback. Grania McKenna, the new girl that came in from Monaghan, is certainly making an impact. And yeah, Jack, happy days.
Yeah, happy days is right. I suppose moving from the ladies football into the Camogie, the senior side are in action on Saturday against Cork in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at 3:00. Very difficult task, especially after having Kilkenny in your opening game in Kilkenny. You now have to travel to Cork in the second round. You also had a 3-week break, whereas Cork were playing last weekend, which is probably more suited to the Rebels. Very difficult task ahead for John Lillis and his team.
You surely know, Jack, how to rile me.
Yeah, I know you were on about the away fixtures and back-to-back games, and I suppose the 3-week break. Which one do you want to start with?
Well, I won't be repetitive. Everybody knows how I stand on that one. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very difficult game. Very, very difficult game. Like they're coming in with contrasting results. It's make or break for Limerick in the context of the league. A second defeat and they'll be out of the league race. A win for Cork and they're through to the semi-finals with Kilkenny to come in that final game. It's going to be very, very difficult, Jack. Now, they put up a very spirited performance against Kilkenny and Callan, and Kilkenny were the league champions. And John Lewis, he blooded 5 or 6 newcomers over the course of the game, and it'll be interesting to see what his lineup will be. Whether he'll go with more of the same, I would suggest probably, because certainly it was an encouraging performance. Now, Cork are a small bit in transition in that it's their first year without Paddy Murray at the helm after 10 years. Matthew Toomey has come in as the new manager, and of course they have Davy Fitzgerald on board as coach. Yeah. So, Cork are going to be formidable, and as usual, but they got a major boost when Soccer McCartan from Down, the Down star, who is now based in Cork, and transferred her allegiance to St. Finbarrs and transferred her allegiance to Cork Camogie. Now, she was among the goals. She scored a goal from a penalty against Clare last week in Cusack Park in Ennis. She's a big addition to him. So, now, they didn't have Orla Cronin last week, nor Chloe Sigerson, who'd be among their top players. Chloe Sigerson came on as a sub, didn't start. Cork are going to be very formidable. I think it's going to be very difficult for Limerick, Jack.
Yeah, it will be definitely difficult, and I suppose the one with Clare in Gaelic or in Limerick will be one you'll be targeting. But look, you never know. Obviously, put it up to Kilkenny when they were largely written off, so you wouldn't write off this side again. That's 3:00 on Saturday, and the best wishes to John and his side. And they obviously have a 2-week break then until Clare in Limerick. So the best luck to them. I suppose we had last Saturday. I suppose it was mixed emotions for Limerick people with UL winning the Fitzgibbon Cup. Obviously there was only one Limerick man in the starting team. A couple of more among the side, and Brian O'Grady started for UL in their, I suppose, snatch and grab win against the NUIG. You alluded to Keane Lynch's sending off earlier. I suppose in the grand scheme of the game, UL got 1-5 down the stretch. But NUIG never really looked completely in control. I know they were ahead, but you kind of felt that if a goal came for UL, they could turn the tide, and that's what happened. But they did have the added men. So what was your synopsis of the game?
You're right, Jack. I think you've summed it up there. Like, they were 5 points ahead on a number of occasions and never looked like putting UL away. And they hurled over at halftime, 5 points in front. And while you'll be clicking your fingers 5 times, like, UL were level with 5 points on a string of 5 points straight after halftime, and that should have been a lesson to them. Now, the concession of frees in all areas of the field could have proved very costly for UL, with the way Evan Nyland was slotting him over from all angles, all distances, irrespective of the conditions. But they finished with a flourish, and like, as I said, one will never know what the influence of the sending off of Cian Lynch had on NUIG. It wasn't positive anyway. It couldn't be positive to lose the hurler of the year and to lose him in such circumstances. I just don't get it. I don't get the sending off. And I've read quite a bit about it and watched it back, and very, very hard to see that it was a sending off offence. But when it was obvious that at any stage that UL were not going away, and that's what happened, and they came with that late flourish of 1-5, and what a week it has been for Mikey Kiley.
Yeah,
to get the winner in such dramatic circumstances in the semi-final in Carlow, and to come up with the winning goal again in the final, because had it gone to extra time, NUIG would have been back to a full complement. They would have been able to put on a 15th player,
Yeah, I just think the squad, UL's team, was much better than NUIG's, but obviously NUIG had Evan Nyland, Cian Lynch, John Fleming was good as well in the day, Jack Fitzpatrick in the backs, but UL are probably a more balanced team. Justin Evan Nyland, he scored, I think, 79 points in 5 games. I know a lot of them are frees, but no one got near that. He's the air replacement for Joe Kenyon by the looks of it. But I suppose for Brian O'Grady, that will definitely do his chances with Limerick the world of good. He obviously showed really well in the Munster Hurling Cup, but he will be one player you'll be looking at that can put pressure on the Limerick starting team after another brilliant performance in the final.
Yeah, he will certainly. And it was interesting. It was a Limerick Galway final, and that there was just one Limerick player on both sides.
Yeah,
that was interesting. But talking about Nyland there now, he's probably going to be available to Henry Shefflin for the visit of Wexford.
Imagine he'd be straight in.
So Wexford don't give away any free within 80 metres,
or even further.
Or you can put up the white flag.
I suppose Conor Cooney will have something to say about that. He was scoring for fun against Limerick.
He was, but I think Nyland will be he'll be the go-to man in that regard. But yeah, congratulations to UL. It was a dramatic win. I agree with your summation that on balance, probably the better team, and probably, Jack, the better squad in. Greater strength in depth, probably, and like you flagged it earlier on in this podcast about the prowess of Brian O'Mara. I think it really shone in the Fitzgibbon Cup, and just one wonders, is he not involved in the Tipperary senior panel?
He's gone away for the summer himself, and Kieran Connolly in midfield are away. I presume they're finished college, I'd imagine now, so it'll be their last chance, and you wouldn't begrudge them with that. But definitely, if you were Colin Bonner, you'd be thinking them two will be straight into my team and Tip anyway, definitely. Yeah. I suppose for the hurling landscape in colleges, the UL Fresher team won the league recently. They beat NUIG. They have Colin Coughlin, Adam English, Colin O'Neill, Pat Crotty, Patrick Donovan, Ethan Hurley. They'll all be on that Fitz team next year. So bodes well for UL at the moment, doesn't it?
It does, and we'll have more than little interest in the Fitzgibbon Cup and UL next year, because as you said, they will all be on board, and probably Brian O'Grady's still, and maybe Mark Quinlan.
Mark Quinlan as well. Rory Duff I only think is in third year. There's a few more, there's definitely a few more lads there that'll get their chance, but congratulations to you all, first and foremost, anyone winning. It makes up a small bit for the Fitzgibbon Cup final, which we looked back on last week. Again, there was only one Limerick man, so hopefully more Limerick representation next year. Obviously, credit to Brian Ryan, obviously a Limerick man, on managing the side to victory.
That is nothing new, Jack.
Mm.
Like Brian Ryan guided Limerick to two very successful Munster minor championships, 2013 and 2014.
And we saw what them players have gone on to do. So
precisely.
Brian Ryan knows how to get the best out of the younger players, and there could be a job with a senior side down the line for him yet. An hour on the clock, Matt. I think that's
like there was a couple of games. Well, there was a very interesting game in the Munster Junior B hurling quarter final.
Oh yes.
Blackrock had a very, very good win over 4 Mile Water from Waterford, the Waterford champions. And as I was saying last week, 4 Mile Water is the sister club of the Nair. And I'd say there must be 2 words in the lexicon that they would love to delete, and that's West Limerick. Because they've had 3 visits there, and they've got bloody noses in all 3 in the senior football against Newcastle West, Junior B football against Ballingarry, and now the Junior B hurling against Blackrock. Yeah, look, Blackrock, Jack, were impressive winners. Gavin O'Loughlin got 3 goals. David Healy, who was named man of the match, he got a couple. And if you're your centre forward and full forward supplying 5 goals, you're in a good place. I made the point last week that 4 Mile Water would have to be a good side to beat Blackrock. And I will make the same point this week because they're playing Scariff in the semi-final on Saturday at 12 o'clock. And it'll be a very, very good Scariff team if they beat Blackrock. And it's followed by the second semi-final between Cork's Belgooley, who are down around the All area of East Cork, and Clonalty Rossmore from Tipperary. Obviously, yeah, none of us know very much about either side, but it'll be the two semi. The Munster section of it will be down to the final this weekend.
Yeah, the best wishes.
There's a Leinster game at 12:45 on Sunday between Blackwater of Wexford and Boris and Osprey Kilcotton of Laois.
There's not very much you'll miss, is there?
So you have Leinster's a bit behind there now because Capitagle got a walkover. There's a team from Riverstown from Offaly, they're still in it. And of course, you've All Saints from Belfast or from the north, the Antrim representatives. They will be coming down the following week for the semi-final.
All right. So
now, Knockaderry didn't take place last weekend. The semi-final between my van and Randall was to take place, but it was washed out, and that has now been rescheduled for Sunday week at 2 o'clock with a provisional fixture for the final the following week, which there will be serious Limerick interest because the final will involve Ballingarry.
Yeah, of course.
Now there are two interesting colleges games, colleges finals this weekend that, as of now, they're on next Wednesday, both on next Wednesday, at venues to be confirmed. Palace Kenry will be playing in the D hurling final. Now, you'll remember they lost the D football final when they were going for a double. Now, they will be playing in the D hurling final against Skolmara Gun Small from Blarney on Wednesday. And the same day, Kalashti Ida August Joseph in Abbeyfield will be playing in the E final against College from Unren in Waterford, the Irish-speaking area of Waterford.
No. So there's plenty of games for people to get out and enjoy.
Plenty games to get out, Jack, and a good spread out of games. Saturday, Sunday, next Wednesday, loads of games.
Yeah,
Figures the curtain has come down on the third level colleges. So, of course, with Ardscoil at the weekend when the game was abandoned due to a serious injury, I'm just wondering, has that been rescheduled for this weekend?
I think it's Monday. I think I saw this morning that it's Monday, but I couldn't be certain. But I suppose the best wishes to that young lad, and hopefully for full recovery, and best luck, I suppose, to Arskilreach, who were ahead, but obviously there was only 2 points in it, so they're better off just replaying the game. So the best luck to Arskilreach there. The best luck to the Limerick footballers on Saturday, the Camogie team on Saturday, and the Hurlers on Sunday. Another eventful week, an hour and 5 in the books, Matt, and I think we'll call it a day there. A huge thank you to you again and to everyone for listening. This is pre-recorded, so any questions, we'll get to them next week. So a huge thank you to you, Matt, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Jack.
The impression again we get out with what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves a score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the work out today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the tackled it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.